Hi sewing friends, I just want to take a few minutes and introduce you to our newest pattern, the Palmer dress. And I want to go over all the nitty gritty of it and give you a full introduction of what you can expect from this, our last pattern of 2025. Keep watching because at the end, we're going to go through and show you all of our tester versions and give you all the details about sizing and fabric and all the things you really want to know. So be sure to pick up your copy on sale now through Thursday. So the Palmer dress has two lengths. We've got the midi length, which hits you right about mid-calf, and we also have the knee length, which hits right above your knee, and that's based on the average 5'5". Of course, we include length and shorten lines, so you can adjust that to your own measurements. Also included are 4 sleeve lengths. We can do the bishop like I've got right here. We've got a flutter sleeve. We've got a short pleated sleeve, which is the first time I've ever done that. It turned out really cute. And then we also have the long fitted sleeve. So another option you have with the Palmer is the waist panel height. This is the taller one. And there's also one that's a bit more narrow where the elastic is stacked right on top of each other. This version I have right here, there's actually empty channels between the elastics. So it just gives you a little bit more height and definition for the waistline area. Of course, you have to have pockets, and this pattern is no different. We've got the inseam pockets that are actually anchored at the waistline, so they're not going to be droopy pockets and making you look like you have bulging hips. So we've got you covered there. Now, the last thing that I want to mention about this pattern that I just love and really made me want to figure out how to do this is this collar. This neckline piece right here, if you can see it. So it's got a really cool split placket here. And the really neat thing about this is it's really easy to adjust how deep or not deep you make this. And I kind of walk you through this in the tutorial itself. So this is the standard depth, but you can easily make this more or less deep just by stitching. It's super, super easy and straightforward. But that's kind of like the defining feature of this pattern is this split placket here. And then the collar is just a standard collar here with a facing. Very classy, I think. I think it's very approachable for, I would say, confident beginners if you're not using velvet. I will say I had a little moment sewing this because this is velvet and it is a little bit more tricky of a fabric to work with. But if you're a confident beginner, I definitely think you can achieve this using something more structured like a Ponte or a Liverpool. Maybe save the velvet for your second or third one. So for tools, this is a pretty straightforward pattern, but a couple things you might need. So you might think that this waist panel is shearing, like with elastic thread. It's not. It's just regular elastic here that you can get, I believe, what is this, 1/2 inch or 3/8 inch elastic. That's all you need to do your panel piece here. And of course, you can either use a safety pin, of course, or a bodkin to pull that elastic through. And the channels are 1/2 inch wide, so you should have plenty of room. So that's a very simple bodkin. Other versions you can get, like this clover one, which is kind of fancy. So it has like a little like alligator clip that you can unclip that and slide it through. But just a bodkin or safety pin works just as well. Something, of course, to write on. This is a Dress pencil with pink chalk, or you can just use some tailor's chalk. You just need something to mark the stitching lines on your waist panel. Seam gauges are always very helpful when you're making sure you want your stitching lines to be accurate. So a couple of tips I found with working with velvet in particular was, first of all, when you're cutting, make sure you're cutting with the nap. So velvet has a nap, which is like the little fibers that stick up. They kind of want to go in one direction. And generally speaking, I have found that you want the nap to be going down your body, and that's the way the light hits it. It's just like a more pleasing way, or at least you want the nap on the pattern pieces going all in the same direction. They don't have to go down. That's what I prefer, but they at least should all be going the same direction. So when you're laying your pattern pieces out on velvet, make sure your pattern pieces are all going in the same direction. So the other tip is for velvet, be sure to interface both sets of your collar pieces and your placket. I found that really helpful. And last tip would be for the waist panel piece. So it's actually two pieces sandwiched with the stitching. So that inside panel piece, I wouldn't use velvet just because that's going to be a lot of bulk. I would use something like interlock or some kind of cotton blend or something, just to give it just not as bulky as velvet would be for that inside lining. So I always think it's interesting what the inside of a garment looks like. So I thought it would be kind of fun to turn my dress inside out and show you all the details, what it looks like on the inside. So starting with our collar here, we have a faced collar. See here, this is velvet like I had mentioned before, so I did interface both sides, and I do offer a different technique of how to finish the collar if you're using velvet or a fabric like that, because it's a little too bulky to do it the initial way I have in the tutorial. You'll see what I'm talking about. So it's just stitched on, the facing is folded to the inside, and then you're stitching in the ditch basically, or you can hand stitch it. So you get a nice clean finish. So the next interesting piece of the inside of this Palmer dress is the placket for the neckline. So you can see here the inside. This is kind of tricky. Like, I have never seen another pattern do this. I'm sure they're out there. I just hadn't seen it myself. I had taken some inspiration from a Bowden dress that I love, and I kind of like reverse engineered it to figure out how to make this rectangle piece split. And like I had mentioned earlier, it's really easy to make this neckline deeper or higher, depending on what you prefer. So the last thing I wanted to point out about the Palmer dress is the waist panel piece. Just to give you a really snatched waistline, this is the higher height that I had mentioned. So you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of stitching. So you have 3 channels, and that we use 3 pieces of elastic to go through the channels, and then there's like empty slots. So for the tall one, for the waistline that is more narrow, it's just 3 pieces of elastic stacked right on top of each other. I just thought that was a really fun way to do it and give you some options. You know, maybe depending on your proportions, you prefer less definition of your waist, or maybe you prefer more. And you can always change how much the elastic takes in just by simply either giving yourself longer elastic length or shorter. I mean, that's all such personal preference and an easy adjustment you can make while you're making your dress. So you might have seen the photos of the outside of the dress and thought, maybe that's shearing in the waist. It's not, don't worry. We're not gonna do that to you. We have, either you love shearing or you hate shearing. But with this type of fabric that this dress is meant for, shearing is not ideal. Like that elastic thread, it's just too, you never know if it's gonna work right. It's a lot of work. So we just went with channels. So this waist piece is actually 2 pieces of fabric sewn wrong sides together. You sew your channels and you thread your elastic through. So you're not going to have elastic touching your skin if that is a concern. This is very comfortable. Like, you can even choose a fabric that is like really plush against your skin, or silky or soft. So you don't have to worry about that either. Like any pattern from Love Notions, we couldn't make the product that we do without our testers. They are such a huge help. And we've got this lookbook put together, and I just want to thank them so much for all their help. And I want you to go through and look at all their different pictures and see all the hard work that they've put into this pattern. So also it'll be helpful for you to look through and look at their sizing and the fabrics and any adjustments that they make. So it'll help you pick out what you need to do for your own Palmer dress.